My brother was buried 42 years ago. But last week I got a call at 2 a.m. and he said, "It's Tommy, am I? I buried my brother 42 years ago. His name was Thomas, Tommy to all of us. He was only 19 when the Greyhound bus he was on slid off the Kokala Highway during a snowstorm in January of 1983. 17 people died that night. Tommy was one of them. I was the one who identified his body at the morgue in Hope, British Columbia. I was 23, just old enough to understand what grief meant, and too young to carry something that heavy. Then I had to go home and tell our mother her youngest son was gone. Last Tuesday at 2 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. Vancouver area code. I almost ignored it. At 65, you learn that calls at that hour rarely bring anything good. But something, maybe the same instinct that woke me when Tommy had nightmares as a kid, made me answer, "David? Is this David?" The voice was rough, strained, like someone who hadn't spoken much in years. But underneath that rasp was something that made my heart stop. "Who is this?" I asked. There was heavy breathing on the other end. "It's me," the voice said. "It's Tommy." My hand shook so hard I dropped the phone. When I finally picked it up again, the line was still open, his breathing still there, steady but uneven. "This isn't funny," I said. "Whoever you are, this is cruel. My brother died 42 years ago. "I know," he said quietly. "I know how long it's been. I just figured out who I am. I found something, a newspaper clipping about the bus crash. And there's a picture of me. Only the name under it says Thomas Carr. That's me, isn't it?" The room started spinning. I forced myself to breathe. "Where are you?" I asked. "I don't really know. Somewhere people call the downtown East Side. I think I live in a shelter on East Hastings Street. But I don't remember how I got here. I don't remember anything from before about 15 years ago. One day, I woke up in a hospital. They said I'd been found on the street. No ID. No name. My mind raced. Scam? Delusion? Some twisted coincidence? But then I asked the only question I could think of. "What do you remember?" "Anything. Just pieces," he said. "Snow. Screaming. Cold. And sometimes I dream about a house with a blue door. And someone making pancakes with blueberries. Every Sunday." That hit me like a punch. Our house had a bright blue door. Mom made blueberry pancakes every Sunday. Tommy always ate twice as many as the rest of us. "What do you look like?" I whispered. "Old," he said. "Really old. I've lived rough a long time. My face is worn, weathered. But I found that picture of the crash. Even though it's decades old, I can see it. The eyes. I have the same eyes." Tommy had a scar on his left forearm. I said slowly. "Fell off his bike when he was 7. 12 stitches. Silence. "I have a scar there," he said. "Old one. Never knew how I got it." Tears blurred my vision. Tears I hadn't cried in years. "Tell me where you are," I said. "Right now." "I don't think you should come," he whispered. "I'm not the person you remember. I don't remember being him. I'm just some old man who's been living on the streets too long. I probably look terrible. Smell worse. I just needed someone to know that maybe I didn't die in that crash. Maybe they made a mistake. Give me the address." He did. A shelter on East Hastings Street. 7 hours from Kelowna. Longer if the roads were bad. "Stay there," I told him. "I'm leaving now. I'll be there by noon. Don't go anywhere." "Okay," he said gently. "Okay, David. I'll wait." The line went dead. I sat in the dark for half a minute, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Then I was moving, pulling on clothes, grabbing my keys and wallet. My wife, Sarah, stirred. "David, what's wrong?" "I have to go to Vancouver," I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. "Right now? At 2 in the morning? David, what happened?" "How do you tell your wife that the brother you buried 4 decades ago just called you?" "I'll explain later." I told her. "I have to go." She called after me, confused and worried, but I was already out the door. The drive was the longest 7 hours of my life. I kept the radio off. My thoughts were loud enough. Part of me was certain this was a hoax. something cruel and elaborate. But another part, the part that never fully accepted Tommy's death, whispered that it might be real. I thought about the morgue, the battered, frozen face they showed me, the body recovered after 12 hours in the cold. I'd been grieving, shocked, desperate to end the nightmare. What if I'd been wrong? What if I'd identified the wrong body? The thought made me sick, because if that were true, then Tommy had been alive all these years, alive but lost, alone, suffering, nameless, while I moved on, married, raised kids, celebrated holidays, while Mom died still grieving a son who might not have been dead at all. I pushed harder on the gas. I reached Vancouver at 11:30 a.m. The downtown east side was everything I'd heard, and worse. Broken buildings, people slumped against walls, the weight of poverty everywhere. My brother had been living here? The shelter was a gray, tired building. Inside smelled of disinfectant struggling to fight the scent of too many lives packed into too small a space. A woman at the desk looked up. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for someone," I said. "He called me early this morning. Said he's been staying here. His name might be Tommy." She studied me. "Yeah, he was here. Asked to use the phone around 2 a.m., sweet man. Been coming here on and off for 8 years. Keeps to himself." "Is he here now?" "Common room. Through there." My pulse hammered as I walked through the door. The room was scattered with mismatched chairs and quiet conversations. A TV murmured in the corner. I scanned the room, and then I saw him, sitting alone by a window, gray hair tied back in a ponytail, worn flannel shirt, shoulders hunched like he was trying to disappear. I walked toward him, barely trusting my legs. "Tommy," I said. He turned. The face was older, much older than 61. Weathered, lined, shaped by years of cold nights and hard living. A scar cut across his left cheek. But his eyes were exactly the same. Brown with flecks of gold. Our father's eyes. Tommy's eyes. "David," he said, voice breaking. I couldn't speak. "You came," he whispered. I wasn't sure you would." "Show me your arm." I managed. "The left one." He hesitated, then slowly rolled up his sleeve. The scar was there, long faded, familiar. My knees nearly gave out. I gripped the table to keep from collapsing. "I think I need to sit down," I said. He pulled out a chair for me. We sat facing each other. Two old men, two lives split apart by something we still didn't understand. "Tell me about the bus crash," I said. "Tell me what you remember." "I don't remember the crash itself," he said slowly. "Just the nightmares. I'm on a bus. It's snowing. The driver is trying to slow down. We start sliding. People are screaming. And it's so cold. So cold I think I'll die from it. And then nothing. Just darkness. For a long, long time." He rubbed his face with both hands. "The next thing I remember clearly is waking up in a hospital," he said. "A nurse told me I'd been brought in from the streets, unconscious. They said I'd been beaten, robbed. But I didn't remember that either. I didn't remember anything. Not my name, not where I was from, nothing." "How long did they keep you?" I asked. 3 days, he said. "They ran tests, but the only thing they found were old injuries. Head trauma, the kind that might have happened years before." "What year was this?" 2010, he said. "February." I had to ask him what year it even was. My stomach twisted. 2010, 15 years after crash. 15 years of blank space. And before that, I pressed gently. "You really don't remember anything?" "Sometimes I get flashes," he said, rubbing his hands together. "Just little pieces that don't fit anywhere. I remember being cold a lot. Living rough somewhere, mountains, maybe. I think I did manual labor, construction, logging, something that paid cash. But it all feels like trying to remember a dream." His hands were scarred and callous, the hands of someone who worked brutally hard for decades. "For a long time I didn't even try to remember," he said quietly. "I just survived day to day. Shelters when I could, outside when I couldn't. There are whole stretches of time I can't account for, months, maybe years. The doctors at the free clinics told me I probably have some kind of dissociative disorder. trauma-related. When did you start trying? I asked. 6 months ago, he said. A volunteer at the shelter showed me an old newspaper she found while sorting recycling. It was from January 1983. She joked about how old it was, and something about that date hit me, like a punch. He reached into his pocket and unfolded a brittle yellow newspaper clipping. He slid it across the table. It was a front-page story of the bus crash. 17 dead in highway disaster. And there, in the victim photo grid, Tommy's senior graduation picture, the same one Mom had given the newspaper. I stared at that picture for hours, he whispered. I knew that face, not from looking in a mirror, but from somewhere deep. And the name, Thomas Carr. I kept saying out loud, Thomas, Tommy. It felt like it belonged to me. I stared at the clipping, at my brother's young face smiling back at me across 4 decades. I started looking for more, he continued. The librarian helped me pull old records. I found the obituary. I found your name listed as my brother, and an address in Kelowna. It took me 3 months to build up the courage to call you. I didn't even know if you still lived there. I'm not sure I believe you, I said quietly. The word slipped out harsher than I intended. If this is real, then I identified the wrong body. I told our mother the wrong son was dead. Do you understand what that means? He flinched but nodded. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I can't imagine what this is like for you. Mom's dead, I said, my voice breaking. She died 10 years ago. She spent 32 years grieving you. She never recovered. His face crumpled. Tears slid silently down his cheeks. I'm sorry, he whispered. I wish I could have found you sooner. We sat there in that shelter common room, 2 old men crying, while the world moved indifferently around us. Finally, I wiped my eyes and looked at him. Really looked. We need a DNA test, I said. It's the only way to know. He nodded. Yes, I want to know too. I booked a same-day appointment at a private lab. Expensive but fast. Come on, I said. Let's go. He stood slowly, his movement stiff, worn. As we walked outside, I realized how much shorter he was now. Years of malnutrition, cold, and hardship had carved away inches and strength. We drove in silence. Every now and then I glanced at him. Sometimes I could see Tommy, in the shape of his ear, the way he rubbed his thumb against his fingers when he was nervous. Sometimes he was a stranger. The DNA test was simple. Cheek swabs, paperwork, payment. Results in 48 hours. When we stepped back onto the street, I asked, Where are you staying tonight? The shelter, I guess. I looked at him. This fragile, weathered man wearing the same clothes he'd been found in, and something in me broke. No, I said. You're coming with me. You don't have to. I know. Come on. I got us a hotel room near Stanley Park. The clerk took one look at the 2 of us, but said nothing. I didn't care what he thought. Tommy showered for 45 minutes. When he came out, clean, hair slicked back, he looked more like the boy I remembered. Not young, but familiar. We ate pizza in silence. Thank you, he said finally, for this, for not walking away. I haven't decided what I believe, I said honestly, but I need to know. He nodded. Can I ask something? Of course. What was I like? Before? The question hit me like a punch. I set down my slice. You were good, I said softly. One of the good ones. You cried over stray animals. You wanted to be a vet. You were funny. You made Mom laugh even when things were falling apart. And you were brave. When Dad left, you told me we'd take care of her. And we did. Tears welled in his eyes. I wish I remembered that, he whispered. Maybe you will, I said, though I didn't know if it was true. That night, I lay awake listening to his breathing, steady and deep, the breathing of someone who finally felt safe. The next morning we got breakfast. He ate like a man who hadn't seen a full plate in months. Then we walked Stanley Park, talking about his life on the streets. The cold winters, the day jobs, the beatings, the arrests, the fog that never left his mind. I always felt like I was waiting for something, he said quietly, like there was somewhere I needed to be, but I could never remember where. The call came at 2:30 on Thursday. My hand shook as I answered. This is Sarah Chun from the DNA lab. Your results are ready. I could barely breathe. The probability of siblingship between you and the second party is 99.97%. In other words, Mr. Carr, you are biological brothers. The room tilted. Are you sure? I whispered. These results are definitive. I hung up and looked at him. My brother, who I had buried 42 years ago. It's you, I said. You're really Tommy. He let out a broken laugh, half sob, half relief. I'm Tommy, he said. I'm Thomas Carr. I crossed the room and pulled him into a hug. He felt so thin, so fragile, but he was real. He was alive. When we finally pulled apart, I said, we need to figure out what happened, how you survived, where you've been. He nodded. I know someone who might help. Dr. Walsh. She works at the free clinic. She knows trauma cases. We went straight there. Dr. Walsh listened to everything without interrupting. Then she examined him carefully. Old scars, bone fractures, reflex tests, the indentation in the back of the skull. You have extensive signs of past trauma, she said gently. Multiple heel fractures, significant scarring and a depressed skull fracture. You were severely injured. From the bus crash? I asked. Possibly, she said. Here's what I think happened. She pulled up a chair. I believe Tommy survived the crash, but was thrown into the snow. In the chaos and darkness, he may have ended up away from the main wreckage. In that storm, he could easily have been missed. I felt cold, and the body I identified. Another passenger, she said softly, similar age and build. Given the condition of the bodies and your grief, it would have been an easy mistake. My stomach churned. So, what happened to him? I whispered. She took a slow breath. I think someone found him. Someone who didn't take him to a hospital. Maybe because they were involved in illegal work. There are remote operations in BC that use nameless laborers. Logging camps, drug sites, off-the-books construction. Workers who can't go to the authorities. Workers who don't even know who they are. Tommy stared at the floor. That would explain the memory loss, she continued. The untreated head injury, possible re-injury, malnutrition, exposure, years of trauma. The dissociation you described is classic for long-term abuse. So sometime around 2010, I said slowly he escaped, or they let him go, or they thought he wasn't useful anymore. Tommy didn't look up, and in that moment, I felt something inside me break, because the truth was clear. My brother hadn't just survived. He had endured hell. Doctor Walsh said 15 years of hard labor would age anyone beyond their years. If he'd started developing medical problems, memory issues, neurological symptoms, whoever was using him might have simply dumped him in Vancouver, and then he lived on the streets for another 15 years. While I was in Kelowna, I said quietly, while I could have been looking for him, you couldn't have known, Tommy whispered. You thought I was dead. We all did. Dr. Walsh turned to me gently. Your mother, she's passed? I nodded, unable to speak. I'm sorry, she said softly. Then she looked at both of us. David, you need to understand something. The man sitting here is your brother genetically, but he isn't the same person he was at 19. He's lived a life most people could not survive. He's Tommy, but he's also someone new, someone forged by 42 years of trauma, endurance, and survival. I looked at him, really looked at him, the gray streaking through his hair, the deep lines etched into his face, the heaviness in his eyes. She was right. He wasn't the boy I'd hugged goodbye in 1983. He was a survivor. What do we do now? I asked. That's up to you, Dr. Walsh said. But I recommend intensive therapy for Tommy. He has decades of trauma to process and an identity to rebuild. Family therapy may help as well. Learning how to be brothers again after all this time. We left the clinic in silence. Night was settling over the downtown east side. The streetlights flickered on while the neighborhood shifted into its harsh nighttime rhythm. Come home with me, I said as we stood on the sidewalk. Come to Kelowna. Stay with Sarah and me. We have a spare room. We can figure this out together. He looked at me, fear flickering in his eyes. I don't know how to be someone's brother, he whispered. I don't know how to be part of a family. I've been alone for so long. So we'll learn, I said. Both of us. We'll figure it out. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay, he said softly. Okay, David, I'll try. We drove back to Kelowna the next morning. The 7-hour drive felt different this time. I kept glancing at him sitting in the passenger seat. The brother who had come back from the dead. We didn't talk much, but the silence felt calm, almost peaceful. When we pulled into my driveway, Sarah was waiting on the porch. I had called her the night before and explained everything. She cried over the phone and told me to bring him home. She walked toward us slowly as we got out of the car. She looked at Tommy for a long moment, then opened her arms. "Welcome home, Tommy," she said. He hesitated, then stepped forward and let her hug him. His shoulders trembled. I knew he was crying again. That was 3 months ago. It hasn't been easy. Tommy wakes up from nightmares almost every night. He panics in crowds and flinches at loud noises. Being indoors too long makes him anxious. He sees a therapist twice a week. We're working through 42 years of trauma, piece by piece, memory by memory. But he's remembering things. Small things at first. The taste of Mom's blueberry pancakes, the name of our childhood dog, the way the house smelled in the summer. Last week, he remembered a Christmas when he was 8, and the bike I saved up to buy him. I'm starting to feel like him, he told me yesterday as we sat on the back deck watching the sun set over the lake. Like Tommy. Like I'm not just someone who shares his DNA. Like I'm becoming him again, or becoming someone new who includes him. Does that make sense? Yeah, I said. It does. My kids have met him, my 2 daughters and my son. The nieces and nephew he never knew he had. They're gentle with him, curious and kind. My 5-year-old grandson has decided that Tommy is his new best friend. Tommy smiles more when the kids are around. We've talked about what to do about the grave. There's a headstone with Tommy's name on it in the cemetery in Kelowna. We've discussed removing it, changing it, or leaving it as a memorial to the young man he once was. We haven't decided yet. There's no urgency. Last week, Tommy got a part-time job at a garden center. He's good with plants. They don't ask questions. They don't judge. He comes home with dirt under his fingernails and stories about customers. He's learning to live again. And I'm learning too. I'm learning that grief doesn't behave the way you expect it to. I spent 42 years grieving my brother, and now he's here. But I still feel the loss of the boy he once was. I grieve the 19-year-old who boarded that bus, the life he should have lived. But I'm grateful, because he's alive. After everything, against all odds, he survived. And maybe that's what matters most. He asked me recently if I blame myself for identifying the wrong body. Every day, I admitted, every day since you called me. Don't, he said. You were 23. You were grieving. You did the best you could. I should have looked more carefully. If you had, he said, they might never have found me. I might have died in those mountains. At least this way, I'm here. I'm alive. And I have a brother who drove 7 hours in the middle of the night because a stranger said his name. He's right, I suppose. I'm trying to forgive myself. It's harder than it sounds. Sometimes late at night, I lie awake and think about the years we lost, the birthdays, the holidays, the ordinary moments we never shared. I think about Mom and how happy she would have been to know he survived. That's the part that cuts the deepest. Knowing she died without ever knowing the truth. But then I remember what Dr. Walsh said. The past is the past. We can't change it. All we can do is move forward. So that's what we're doing, day by day, moment by moment, learning how to be brothers again, or maybe learning how to be brothers for the first time, because we're both different people now. Last night, we sat on the deck after dinner. Tommy looked up at the stars. Do you think Mom knows? He asked. Wherever she is, do you think she knows I'm alive? I think she does, I said. I think she's been watching over you this whole time, keeping you alive until you can find your way back. He smiled, still a rare thing, but becoming more common. I'm glad you answered the phone, he whispered. Me too, Tommy, I said. Me too. And I am, despite the pain, the confusion, the grief that somehow exists beside the joy. I'm grateful, because my brother came back from the dead. And that's a miracle I never expected to witness. I've learned something from all this. Hope isn't foolish, even when it feels impossible. People are more resilient than we ever imagine. Family isn't just shared memories. It's choosing to show up again and again, even when it's hard. And I learned that it's never too late for a second chance. Tommy is still finding himself. He may never remember everything. He may always carry the scars of those missing years. But he's here. He's alive. He's home. And that's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.